we go. I'm Stan, CTO at IABM, and it was great to get the opportunity to get a lot of the exhibitors together and just discuss what's going on in the industry generally. But also, I really wanted to focus on this from mainly from a vendor point of view as well. And I think it's always important to bring the vendors together, because we always have lots of things we need to talk about on our own without any customers present and sharing ideas and things like that. So we'll talk about some of that with the panel I have together. For those of you who aren't familiar with IABM, we're the only trade association for vendors in the media and entertainment business, and we obviously focus on vendor needs. The other thing we do is we do bring on end users as well into the community as well for a lot of surveys and things like that. So we do have a clear taxonomy that we do, and this is used by not only a lot of vendors, a lot of end users as well. That's the industry model. And you'll see as I'm presenting things today, we really focus on that with the create, produce, manage, publish, which of course is play out in this day and age, monetize, and then right down to the consumer side. And then of course you've got some core pillars there as connect, support, and of course storage. So that's really focused on that. We do have end users that visit our site to look for product based on that taxonomy, and you can see we have about 10,000 hits per month of looking for that. So we do have a business intelligence unit that's put together the first part of the presentation, and that's headed up by Chris, as well as a lot of the research analysts that we do have. And the research is done by various survey aspects, as well as on calls. I'll get into that after. I'll put this QR code up later, but if you do want the presentation, you can certainly click on that. As I said, I'll throw it up later so you can get a little bit more detail on that. So our primary research, like we said, it is a lot of survey, and then what we do is we do follow up and go from there. Don't you love WYSIWYG fonts? You got to just enjoy it. Anyway, it is what it is. And then, of course, we do secondary research where our research team actually gets more details into what's going on by doing their own research on different web and speaking in areas. So when we look at this is one of the key areas within our industry where we focus on, which of course is giving people a net environment outlook. What is happening with that? And it's really one of the staple surveys that we do, and it's a business confidence ratio. And it really is a good reality check what we do this. So we typically do this in the NAB Las Vegas timeframe, and then we do it in the IBC timeframe as well. And it gives you a good idea of what's going on. And the business confidence, I think we can see it's pretty volatile, and it actually has fallen over the last year. And but on the other hand, we kind of have to look at the reasons for why it's been shifting and what sort of has happened in that area. And I've broken it out here so you can see what's happened in the global area as well as in the North American area. So North America is a little bit more bullish as far as the confidence ratio goes. I think when we've seen what happened in 2023, we were dealing, of course, with the writers' strike, and that's definitely affected things. People didn't really expect that it would fall into the such a long tail as it did, as far as that goes. And when we have a look at 2023, I think we could see pretty clearly it was kind of like a crucial moment for FBOD. We did have a back off in the continuous growth area, and you can see this by the Disney Plus numbers there. It's the same for Netflix as well. So I think when we have a look at that, that gives a good idea what's going on. The other thing, when we go and we have a look at what's happening with fast channels these days, fast channels have really, they really picked up. I think with our research, we found in May there were 2,900 fast channels just in the U.S. alone. So that's pretty substantial, a year-over-year growth and where that's hitting. So it'll be interesting to see. I think everybody, just like we had in the original streaming market, it's kind of a land grab situation where it's heading in that. Now here's a stat to have a look at. This really surprised me. So this is the share of viewing in the living room TV, and I was really surprised, that YouTube is highest on the chart for the living room TV. You're laughing over there, Andy. It is a surprise, though, isn't it? You thought people just watched it on their TV sets. So it's really becoming important when you look at that with the market share where that's heading. Of course, this was in July. August, NBC picked up, obviously in the U.S., and that was clearly an Olympic thing as far as that went. But I still say that, that really surprised me to see where that fit in with the numbers there. And you can really look at this chart here and see the volatility. There's no question that end users or viewers rather are pretty volatile as far as fickle what they're doing. They're moving service to service and where that fits. And what I found is we're increasingly seeing a lot more activity on churn management. And one of the things IABM runs is our awards, our broadcast and media awards that we do in the NAB Las Vegas timeframe, as well as IBC. And churn management is really taken off in that area, particularly with using AI. And I think that's important. People are actually looking at churn management now in an advanced format. They're using AI to analyze what the viewers are watching, and then they can be proactive in dealing with the viewers before they disappear with that. But cloud services is an investment priority. Where that fits, you can see on the scatter chart here where that fits. AI and machine learning and analytics is really high. Things have lowered a little bit with cloud services and virtualization. It doesn't mean it's important. You can look at the investor there. You can just see that the growth rate is down. And of course, target advertising is very clear on that. And what's happening with AI? I think there's a little bit of confusion with AI. People are talking about, obviously we have new chips for AI and where that goes. But traditionally, for chips, we've had to have high precision, lots of bits for processing to make the video and make the audio sound great. But with AI, it's more noise-based, so we don't need precision chips. But what we do need is we need fast chips, and that's where that's fitting. And that's really where we're starting to see what's going on. And I think everybody's probably heard about what's happening with NVIDIA and their AI chips and where they're going. And you can certainly see their revenue growth within the last area there. Now, a lot of this was kind of a bit of a surprising one, the upturn in hardware. What's happening with hardware? Why are we having more hardware sales? Everybody thought, oh, we're moving into cloud. We're moving into cloud services. Why do we have more hardware sales? Hybrid. People want to be on-prem. They want to be using cloud services for certain aspects, but they do want to be on-prem. So there's no question that hardware does have an uptick, which is really good to see as well. And, when we look at, again, the investment outlook, people were pretty bullish in 2023. It has come down. What we have within IABM, we have regional councils around the world, and specifically on the call with our North America Council the other day, people aren't predicting gloom and doom, but they're not predicting big growth. It's pretty well flat, is what they're saying. So they're watching their spends and where that fits. And that's, again, an advantage of the community, understanding what the other vendors are seeing within the community. It's one thing to talk to the customers, but it's a good idea to have an understanding of what's going on with that. And when we look at the MediaTech investments now, obviously, people are focusing on revenue generation. Where's that going? And flexibility and customization. One of the problems within our industry has always been too much customization. Everybody has to do it special. They always have a program, oh, that's different than everybody else's and things like that. And those customization things do cost a lot of money to deal with. And, they're not necessarily sustainable in the long term. The other investment is, of course, efficiency. So that, it's return on investment, but people want more efficiency. I'll talk a little bit more about efficiency in a little while when we get into orchestration and where that fits. Sustainability, down on the list, unfortunately. And I have to say, way down there on the bottom of the list are almost the two important things within the industry, is training and support. We're trying to get new people into the industry, younger people into the industry, and they're not putting money into training. So you kind of look at that and go, how does that work? How are we getting that training going? And of course, we have to have things on an interrupt schedule. We have to have things working together. That's going to improve efficiency, but also that is an area where the vendors work together on. And some of the things that I put together are working groups to focus on making sure that vendors can work together with their products. So when we have a look at some of the things that are going on in barriers to growth, I'll just highlight here a few things here, specifically on the North American side. And that is, there's no question in some areas we do have, it's pretty saturated as far as the market goes, and we do have very competitive. Now, of course, we've got all the microeconomic pressures. That's normal. But we're still suffering with digital infrastructure, understanding where that fits, trying to figure that out. And you can see back a couple of years ago, the one on the bottom there was supply chain. That's reasonably settled out at this point, as far as that goes. So the common threads from just a little summary of what I gave you is areas of focus are definitely profitability, where that's fitting. People have to figure out profitability. They have to deal with that. We always have consolidation going on, and I think we're seeing that more and more within the industry. We've been talking about consolidation for ages. We have consolidation between vendors for some time now, but we are seeing a lot more consolidation. And some of that, of course, is driving efficiency as far as that goes with the consolidation, but other ones is just trying to capture more market share. So I'm going to dive into one area that I specifically focus on, which is our IABM technology and trends roadmap. And you can I'm just going to give a little brief update on the changes for those familiar with it. If you want to get the detail on there, the QR code's up there, you can download it, but there's a full description of each area on there. So just to give you a quick overview of what we do, we take about 40 technologies and trends, and we break them into a dozen or so major areas on that. And every couple of years, we change the major areas depending on how the industry has changed in that. And we plot that on the technology adoption curve from bleeding edge right up to commodity and where that fits. So that gives you an idea. And what surprised me was when we first started doing this, we found out people are giving it to their boards as the chart, because they were looking at the chart and saying, well, hang on here. If it's a commodity product we're doing, you shouldn't be expecting a high gross margin. And if you're on the bleeding edge, you're kind of risky. If you're kind of in the middle, maybe you've got good gross margin where that fits. So that was a simple way of explaining where their technologies that they develop fits within the risk reward scenario and where that's going. And that also gives a good indication of where that is. One of the main engineers I gave this to originally and said, have a look at this, review it. He made sure every one of his direct reports had a copy of this on their office wall whenever they did any project to make sure they considered every aspect of that. And as I mentioned earlier, we plot these based on the content chain, where that fits in, because you want to understand which area it does fit, whether or not you're on the creation side or you're on the monetization side, for that matter. So when we have a look at a couple of the changes we did, we used to have a cloud on there and where that fits, and we had storage on there and those types of things. I think the issue comes down to is we have to stop as an industry, and I'm talking to all the vendors here, we have to stop using the word cloud generally. We should be talking about cloud services. Because when you talk to someone about cloud, they just may think, oh, I virtualized a process. That's a cloud virtualization to me. So if you're running something in a public cloud, it's probably a cloud service you're running on. So kind of make that clear as far as that goes. And of course, microservices fit into that very clearly. Some of the other changes we've done is we had remote production in there, which of course was really key during COVID. But pretty well everybody's RFP now just assumes their RFQ, assumes you're doing production already. So we just took that out. Obviously, we've added in, we used to have AI and ML and analytics, but Gen AI is really picking up. And what's most important, of course, is provenance and where that fits. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. This is an area I do like to focus on, security. We had security in there. We moved over to secure workflows. It's really secure architectures. And you'll hear me talk about security all the time, constantly in that. Sustainability, too much greenwashing going on. So we've changed that into tangible sustainability. Tell me what's sustainable. Tell me how it worked. Don't just say, oh, we're sustainable and we're doing things in that. One of the areas to focus on, of course, within the industry here from the vendor point of view is parallel markets. Broadcast is one thing. Broadcast and media, of course, now is a lot of different areas outside of traditional entertainment. And there are a lot of vertical markets to focus in there. And the same with emerging markets. We'll talk a little bit about that. But as I did mention before, cloud, the growth in that is cloud technology is certainly the backbone. There's still a clear focus on IP, as well as AI. Immersive is kind of in the middle. We kind of hit that, oh, we're going to be all immersive. Where are we hitting on that? It's kind of in the middle. And blockchain's kind of fallen off the list. Everybody was excited about blockchain. Blockchain is still being used. It's still under the hood. But where does that fit? One of the reports we have out is our tech tracker. It tells you the adoption rates in those different areas on that. So I'm going to go back here to secure architectures for a minute. So secure frameworks and standards such as Zero Trust and NMOS IS10 and OAuth 2, I mean, they're pretty structured and they're pretty firm in the industry at this point. The real focus on that is to make sure they get into your products and help your customers understand how to deal with security. Very important. One area that a lot of people don't know about is CDN leaching. And you may be, what's CDN leaching mean? Well, everybody's talked about secure delivery of video, but if you're delivering something to a CDN, people hack into the CDN before the stream even gets out and start stealing the video. So that's called CDN leaching. So there's a clear focus on that. I have a panel that we're running over in Theater 2 this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And Loic from Bloomberg, I was chatting with him one day, and he said, You just tell me any feed that goes out to a CDN and I'll hack into it within 15 minutes. And sure enough, he can. So it shows you the importance of that. And people they don't think that's an issue, but really it is an issue. So we're going to cover some of that aspect on that. Some of the things we do, research, we do interview members, and we interview end users on that. And I'm going to throw up some quotes here specifically from North American IABM members that we've talked about. And you can see that the quote here about cloud infrastructure and where that's fitting. So the question comes down to is where things are with live production in the cloud. And I get different, back and forth. This is the cool thing about talking with members within the industry. You'll get one point of view and then you'll get another point of view, right? You'll get one point of view of, oh, I can do everything in the cloud. And then you'll talk to an end user and go, well, I'm not sure I'm going to trust everything in the cloud. So it's good to get all those points of view. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that one up. We'll have a few more here. Immersive in imaging, where that fits. We did actually add in more early adopter in there. And some of that is because of the Apple Vision Pro. The Apple Vision Pro is a great technology and where that fits in. Although the price point is going to be a problem as far as that goes. And of course, everybody that's been to Las Vegas has certainly at least seen the outside of the sphere, but call that as a parallel market and where that fits in there. So tangible sustainability. IBM is very tied up with the greening of streaming group that's really focusing on understanding where power usage goes. And the working group within there came up with this great workflow. Again, you can get a hold of this picture online here to understand actually where the power is going. And we'll talk a little bit about more versus power versus carbon footprint and things like that. But we do, again, have a report coming out on ESG and how it's impacting business models. So here's another quote from one of our members on this about tangible benefits. But I had to highlight the middle of the quote. No customer will take a high risk on that. And I did question a lot of people at IBC on the show floor, both customers and vendors. And they said, we've kind of cranked down a little bit on the sustainability excitement where that fits. So it depends what country you're in and where you're fit. And even within the EU now, there's rules with that. So they're just saying, oh, I'm just going to follow the EU rules. So it's all over the map. But from a vendor point of view, people are coming to you saying, I want to know the power usage, where that fits. And understanding that with cloud. And people think when they just go into cloud, it's instantly saving power usage. It doesn't necessarily mean that. So when we look at emerging trends, certainly if you're in the studio side of products, and as well as others, digital twins is very important with that, where they actually make a duplicate of the studio and how that works so they can make sure that it's actually safe for the actors because they've got different things from cameras moving around to props and everything else. So digital twins is really a neat way to go, and they can figure out the lighting and how that moves. The other thing that's going on is a lot of software more with Gen Z audiences. And we seem to no longer have this first screen and second screen stuff anymore. As you can even see on the living room screen from the first stat where that is, as I mentioned in there. And I'll bet you if I asked everybody in the room here, I'd end up with 20 different responses on what the metaverse is. So who knows where that is. So let's talk about next-gen TV just for a minute on the delivery side. ATSC3 is up to 76% households on that. We did interview one of our members on this, actually 3 of our members on this, and you can see there's conflicting information. One saying it's never going to happen. Well, I'm not sure about that, but that is a point of view from them where that fits. And the other quote on there I thought was really good about the number of full power stations and low power stations, where that's fitting, and what'll happen with maybe just 5G broadcasts and where that fits on there. This is something that has just come out. I'm not sure if this is a patent pending or a patent that Apple has just put on, where somehow or another they're patenting a stylus pen as an antenna. And I had a look at that and I thought, well, anything's an antenna. For those of you who know about Aereo back in the day, they called paper clips antennas so they could get around the how they manage the cable rules and things like that. So that stylus supposedly will pick up over the air signals, demodulate them, and then send them over to the iPad. So that's what that's about. So again, a conflict. All of a sudden you're saying people ATSC won't happen, but they're just saying, oh, I'm doing an off the air thing. Where does that fit in that? I'll tell you, one of the other areas to focus on is orchestration. It's so complex now, the system. You've got to have good orchestration and where that's fitting in that. And also QC. And one of the biggest issues that I hear from end users is I no longer can probe and find out where the problem is. I used to be able to pull an SDI cable. I used to be able to probe in a patch panel and see what was going on. I can't do any of that anymore. So you really need orchestration to figure that out and to manage your cloud services as they go. One of the focus groups I have working together is an IABM control plane working group, and that is, again, to make sure that we have a control plane to control not only hardware, but also cloud services and where that's fit in there. The other thing IABM does is we attend the SMPTE and AES committee meetings, and we do reports on those as well. So you people don't have time to send people to that, but you need to understand where some of the standards are heading in that. And as I just mentioned, this is just a summary here. I do want to get on with the panel here where we're fitting on this. But I think if we look at this last quote here, where that's going is it talks about AI and the importance of AI and how we're going to see the more efficiency happening with that. And I think what I really like to see out of our awards and where that fit is we had a lot of people that submitted awards and they had AI in it, but people didn't have a specific AI only thing. They were all using AI or ML to improve their workflows, to make them work better, make them work faster, make them work more efficient. And again, there's a lot less marketing now on AI itself. They actually have real usage with that. And of course, provenance is the most important thing, where we fit on that and where that goes. And we certainly, we were more bleeding edge on that, training ML and the LLMs as far as that goes. One of the people on my roadmap working group took an MIT course on Gen AI, and he said that chatbots hallucinate 27% of the time, and 46% of their time are errors. So just go figure on that, right? So on one of my committee meetings the other day, somebody came up with this real cool equation, and we went, that's going to solve all of the problem that we're dealing with. Where did you come up with it? He said, I asked AI. And he said, well, how do you know where it came from? He said, well, I asked AI, and they said it made it up. So how do you know if it was real or not? So now we're all trying to figure out whether or not the equation really is real or not and where that fits. But speaking of provenance, I think we're going to see more watermarking standards where that fits in. Cameras now do a digital signature that fits right through in that. We're seeing, if you don't know about C2PA, I do encourage you to look that up. That is a complete string of where that fits. You can see what Sinclair is doing with that. They are very strong believers in C2PA. We have to get rid of this. You know, it's not getting rid of all the fake news and everything, but at least it's making sure what you have is real and where that fits. So if you're not familiar with that, do go to c2pa.org They are referencing IDAR, which is again important. And here's a real cool thing that a guy told me the other day is he said, if I had C2PA running, I could figure out the problem. I've got this program that I'm dealing with now, and somebody threw in an extra encode somewhere, and it really messed up the video quality. I can't figure it out. If I had C2PA, I could go through the whole chain of where everything was changed, and I could immediately say, oh, there's that extra encode that I shouldn't have had that really messed up the signal. So it's actually a QC aspect as well. Emerging trends on that, I just want to bring up 6G. Boy, how many people have heard about 6G already? Well, that's up and coming. We're not going to be seeing 6G probably, for a few years now. 5G is still rolling out. But this just gives you an indication, it's going to be a lot faster. It's where we're looking at the smart environment and where that fits in. You're seeing a lot of discussions now with the FCC where they couldn't do Oxenge. Of course, 6G will take more bandwidth. So, of course, they're trying to get back into that. So back and forth on that, you're going to start to see a lot of stuff in the news about 6G. And that does basically fall on what's happening with the advanced 5G networks and where that fits in that. So with that, Karen, I'm going to call up Karen here while we get our panel settled on. And here's the QR codes for both presentations. Karen is our head of membership here, and she can just tell you a couple of things while we're getting settled. Come on up, guys. He'll turn on for you.
Hello.
There you go.
Good morning. I'm Karen Cohen. I head up the membership and sales for North America. And if you're not a member of IABM, I'd love to chat with you, and you can learn a little bit more about what we do. In addition to all the research we do, we have some great training courses. So if you've got some new staff, new to broadcast, we've got Broadcast 101 that's available for free if you're a member to help people just get integrated quicker into the industry.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think we look at onboarding new people. One of the courses that we've been upgrading for a while, I recently did an upgrade on that, and so did our training people, is as your people are coming on board, it's important for them to understand what the business is all about. It's not just broadcast, it's understanding how we got from A to B. And there's a heavier technical version of it, and then there's a lighter one that even as a new CFO comes on board, it's great if they have an understanding on that. So we're going to have a quick panel discussion here on this, and I railroaded a couple of people as we were set up in the show here, and I've got Ian, your CTO at Grass, and Andy, he's my buddy here from long ago, your CTO at up here. And Stephen, he runs a great monitoring company as well, and cool stuff as far as that goes. So I'm just going to start with Andy here for a minute, and let's just talk about why am I pushing so much cloud services rather than cloud?
Wow. Okay. Well, I think the different consumption models that people are looking for is different, and I think there's been there was an initial view that publicly hosted cloud was going to be the future for everything. And I think a lot of people jumped on that, and the consumption models for that obviously are very much pay-as-you-go models. That's the reason why people are going to be using public service cloud in the future. I think what we're now seeing is more of a hybrid software deployment model being used, where we want to deploy on private compute and public compute. And the consumption models probably between those are quite different, because the cost economics of the way people are looking to do run solutions moving forward. This is with the inevitable assumption that the live production process is going to be software hosted in some form or other moving forwards. Is that most people are going to be running their 24/7 infrastructure on private compute and using cloud for pay-as-you-go services to actually, if you like, top up to handle the peaks. So base demand, peak usage, and the consumption models for using the tools needs to be different between those.
Yeah. Now, Simon, I was talking about different aspects of QC and churn rate, where that fits. you're heavily into the QC side, and people say, well, I don't spend any money on QC. Where does that fit? And you know, people are trying to understand, other vendors here understand where the business is going. And so just talk about that for a minute. Are we turned on there? There, you're on now.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that QC is important. That's for sure. And when you then add on to Andrew's, very nice comments about the potential for the public cloud to be the top level kind of elasticity that you need to actually be able to cater for high demand, then QC inside the cloud or inside the public domain becomes super important. Because as you say, you can't go to a patch panel and actually withdraw the signal. You have to have that as part of your infrastructure. So I believe for any kind of successful deployment of, let's say, compute instead of cloud, is dependent on pretty significant QC efforts. And that also, of course, lines perfectly into orchestration. And we've seen some great examples of orchestration really working, just actually yesterday, which is very, very impressive by you guys, Ian. But again, people tend to discard QC as something, that we might not need it because we are architecting the system so well. Well, they come around pretty fast that you will have to need it. And also, QC in itself will have to change because QC has been pretty difficult to manage. It's been, particular hardware, insert points into the network. It needs to mature into easy microservices that can be deployed together with the orchestrational system.
Right. And let's just talk about that. Being a CTO at Grash, you've got your pulse on the industry kind of worldwide, but also a lot in North America here. Where are you seeing the specific interest?
I think it's all the things that you've highlighted there. I mean, you could summarize it in broadcasters need to do more with less. They're not getting bigger budgets. In many cases, they're losing staff. So that drives innovation and inefficiency. So that's the good side of it. It's like evolution. Evolution doesn't happen unless there's pressure in the world to kind of.
But that scares you. There's no revenue then.
Well, they've just got to find ways of extracting the maximum value out of the assets they've got. And the whole debate about cloud and on-prem, that's almost to me the wrong discussion, because cloud's not some magic thing. It's just somebody else's computer. And unless you've specifically re-architected your entire workflows and your software to take advantage of a true microservices architecture and not just a lift and shift as you were talking about, you're not going to get the benefits. And, we've seen examples of customers who've gone, their CFO's gone, we're going to move to the cloud and save a load of money. And they take 30 computers from their equipment room and put them in 30 virtual machines in the cloud. And amazingly, it costs them a lot more money. So, that's the wrong way to do it. But if you do it properly, if you look at your workflows, if you look at your people, if you look at how you can utilize technology to drive efficiency, if you can simplify your user interfaces so you can use less skilled staff for certain production operations, that's how you get to the green credentials. That's how you get the efficiency.
Well, let's jump to Andy here for a minute on the sustainability side. Everybody thought, I go in the cloud, I'm sustainable.
Yeah, I just like to pick up on follow on from one thing Ian just said then. I think one of the other things that comes out of that is event viability. So more for less. That's both upping the production value of stuff that you're doing, but actually it's an enabler of doing multi-camera live production of stuff that just would never have been viable. Just with the cost base that we can now create in a spun up software infrastructure system with ML assisted tools to actually make things work. I think that's a really other important facet of this. It enables more as well as us to do things better with that same cost base. Onto the sustainability thing. I think sustainability, it's a personal passion of mine, and I think there is definitely geographic territorial pressure and lack of pressure to actually to push this. In Europe, we're actually seeing, rightly so, I think, drives to to make things more sustainable, and that's actually in RFPs. It's mandated. We have to do not only our own product performance in terms of power consumption footprint, but we have to do all of the upward supply chain, everything that contributes to the product that we create, as well as how that behaves when it's deployed. What I do see in other territories is possibly the sustainability credentials are a secondary thing to the fact that saving power saves you money. So it's more the commercial imperative that's driving some of the approach rather than the actual green element itself.
Yeah, now, Seaman, you're caught up in some of the EU stuff. What are you hearing about carbon footprints?
Well, a lot of broadcasters do focus on it because they're paid by the public, and that means that they have a focus much more than commercial players. In the end, sustainability is something that you will introduce when you can. Nobody talks about sustainability when you fire up, a hog of a server with 64 cores running microservices, because you don't think about that. And I don't believe it's super important, but remember the cable industry? They were big power consumers, and we actually went and created embedded systems which didn't actually draw a lot of power, like 13 watts for a complete QC monitoring system. And then suddenly that became very popular because they saved tons of money by deploying this in 200 locations. So it all adds up for sure. But I think that we need to get real and also get back into the grown-up club when it comes to sustainability. It's like we talk about, microservices, we talk about server services, and we talk about spinning things up and spinning things down. In the real world, a lot of stuff is just continuously spinning. That's how it actually works. And then you spin up some additional services. So first of all, we have to make sure that our focus on software and capabilities inside the microservices kind of spectrum is well thought out, and that we don't actually keep on running a lot of unnecessary services. I think that will be the key thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I think the orchestration piece plays into that, because even with existing hardware solutions that are out there, there is intelligence within the system that understands when resources are needed and when they're not. So that there are massive savings just from actually using the innate intelligence and information you have within the system about knowing what's needed to be used when. So there are some basic applications of the orchestration layer knowledge in terms of the resources and the power consumption there.
That's exactly why orchestration or intelligent orchestration becomes a very, very big thing. And that's where it all kind of goes into a circle together with, of course, my pet project, which is QC, but basically it all fits together. But the orchestration is the key to actually make this both sustainable, efficient, and also to work at all.
Ian?
I totally agree. And again, we find a lot of broadcasters, they need to be able to track their usage from a commercial point of view, the sustainability, the power, but also because they have to recharge their internal teams. So you'll find that individual sort of production teams within a broadcaster, they get recharged for the cost of the services they're consuming, whether they're consuming them in the cloud or on-prem, it doesn't matter. So being able to accurately orchestrate and track the costs of what your production is actually costing you down to the dollar is really important.
Well, I think certainly going into the cloud services and making sure they're running native is most important. I end up with this conflict, though, between confusing answers I get constantly. It's like if I'm running on a cloud service, I'm more efficient because I'm only generating that much or using that much power while I'm running. But on the other hand, aren't the services running all the time because they have to be there for peak?
Well, it depends, again, what kind of services you're talking about. In the cloud, obviously, you're stopping and starting physical services in the cloud, which ultimately will be spinning down compute.
Does it really spin down the compute?
In some circumstances, but in many cases not.
Okay.
But again, if you're running on-prem, you're pulling more power if your server is busy than if it's not busy. Don't necessarily stop the server, but if you stop running the software on it, you're pulling less power. It's obviously dropped to a much lower power consumption.
Right. So just one last question, because we got to get on with things here. Andy, what's one of the biggest issues from the vendor point of view everybody needs to work on?
Okay, so from my perspective, we still are not heading for convergence in digital interconnect for compute for live media flows. Now, I know there are several organizations, looking at my friend Ian here, that are doing great stuff there, but where I'm heading for, and I said at a presentation I was doing at the head of the week at VSF, it's a bit like the aims of 2015 for 2024. I think we need to coalesce as an industry to make sure we've got an open, coherent way of doing native compute data sharing and orchestration that can be supported across the industry. So end users can enjoy best of breed like they have been doing in broadcast appliances for the last 50 years in a compute environment. I know there's lots of initiatives, but I would really like to see a convergence on that. That's really important for me.
Stephen?
I couldn't agree more, and you're completely right. But we must forget that the IPification of the industry is still kind of early days, even though the adaptation of IP has gone much, much faster than, for instance, the adaptation of SDI. It took a while for SDI to actually succeed. And we must also remember that the IP is the backbone of interconnect right now. And we are, of course, talking about the ability to address shared memory space and all of this, which is definitely coming. But I don't think that we should expect any kind of big standardization anytime soon, because this is very, very early days. But that's where vendors, especially like Ian here, can show us the way and actually then be able to create the ecosystem that we either can choose to be part of or not. And not so much the standardizations organizations, because the standardizations organizations are pretty behind on this.
Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I mean, I'm a big fan of vendors just working together with customers, just getting stuff done. And then that often then becomes a standard later on, because, the industry is moving too fast. But to me, the getting the agreement about how we share flows and exchange memory buffers is one thing, but then the platform bit is the big thing for me, because we'll have massively failed our customers if you have to have logins to 15 different platforms in order to use 15 different vendors as well.
Well, that's also a security nightmare, and we can talk about security forever.
Exactly.
Well, with that, I appreciate the quick chat today. For those people that attended today, it's great. You can get the presentations there, and if you want to know more about IABM, come on and join the group here. We got lots of stuff to talk about and solve. Thanks again.